Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Saoirse Glíomh Chairde agus a comrade. Greetings, comrades and cadres and friends. It's Misha on Punk Fenian Jarrett. I'm known as Red Fenian Punk sometimes. Anyway, talking about the recent moral panics and media furores at the Glastonbury Festival featuring Bob Dylan and Kneecap. I also want to talk about the Nakba genocide that's been going on in the so-called Middle East, Western Asia. I want to talk about anti-Semitism, and I'm going to talk about racism in general, broadly. I'm trying not to sidetrack myself too much now. Recent stuff that's been going on with regards to Glastonbury now. The history of the troubles, if you will, like the Irish, the euphemism for the Irish Long War, the genocide that's been going on in Palestine at the hands of the Israeli occupation forces is something that's been going on since 1948 with the Nakba. Now, this involves violence, ethnic cleansing, displacement of people, attempted genocide of language, and mass murders of civilians. It's been going on for a long time. Now, of course, there's been various fightbacks from the PLO, which is an umbrella organization of biggest one being the biggest organization with them was Fatah, led by Yasser Arafat. The other two biggest were the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and the DFLP, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Both of these organizations are Marxist-Leninist, anti-revisionist, and Maoist, basically, respectively. They've all been involved in that. Now, in 1987, an Islamic group called Hamas, which was born out of the Palestinian Islamic Muslim Brotherhood, which was connected to the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. That was the originator of that, I believe. They were created. Now, contrary to popular belief, Hamas was not created by Israel as some kind of counter gang. They were given funding by Israel because they wanted to have a reactionary Islamic terror group that would basically tarnish the reputation of Palestinian resistance, and they could fund this kind of death cult. See how another example of how this works, a more successful version of this was groups like Al-Qaeda, which fizzled out, and then from the vacuum of that became the Islamic State, so-called Daesh. Again, the Taliban, they were very useful to demonize resistance to imperialism. Now, Hamas didn't quite do that. They had some right-wing bourgeois trends, and they did engage in some acts of violence, and you could even say terrorism. However, as time went on, the PLO collapsed. Fatah sold out with the peace deal. Hamas became the only real resistance to it. Now, a lot more progressive people, I think, joined Hamas. A lot of them engaged in more liberation theology. So Hamas went from being more of a kind of right-wing reactionary thing to a more progressive thing. Of course, Israel threw up its arms, as did the West. They were because they were gaining credibility and becoming more powerful. They won elections in Palestine. They tried to demonize them and try to imply basically that Palestinian civilians are a backward culture, that are barbarians that want to kill the West and want to throw gay people off rooftops, etc. Point of reference to that, when LGBT people or people with funny colored hair try and support Palestine, and they keep telling us, people like that, me and me gay and queer mates, they say they'll throw you off the rooftops. That wasn't Hamas even. That was Islamic State. Islamic State and Hamas cannot stand each other. They may be Islamic groups, or well, Hamas, yeah, Islamic State, not really. They're just a death cult, Wahhabist, takfirist death cult. Islamic State and Hamas hate each other. They can't stand each other. Now, after the resistance, which peaked at the 7th of October 2023 by Hamas. I think the PFLP, I've forgotten the news. I didn't research this before I recorded this, but Hamas mainly attacked the music festival. That music festival, which Bono fawned over. You can fuck off, Bono, you fucking Westbrook cunt. You go back to deep throating the imperialist boot. God suicide fame, Chanushtu, like Dolores O'Riordan back in the 90s, but I'm not going to sidetrack myself too much. Now, this music festival was used to basically crow to poke fun at the Palestinians being starved to death in the de facto concentration camp open air prison that the Gaza city was. As a fight back against this, Hamas, I think the PFLP may have been involved, and possibly DFLP, fought back. Now, violence that happened there was horrible. prisoners, which are called hostages when they're taken by the Palestinians, were taken. A lot of them were members of the IOF because, like I say, mandatory conscription is the norm in Israel. Now, part of this was partly due to fight back against this colonization, this crass triumphalism, having a party next to the starved out city of Gaza. And it was also to try getting. I think there was some attempt to do a bargaining plea with freeing Palestinian prisoners, they're called, who were basically state-held hostages. Most of them are held without trial, and they've not done anything wrong. A standoff's being made around that. Now, the Israeli reaction to that was perfect for them. It was an excuse to play the victim, as they always fucking do, and they proceeded to carpet bomb with every fucking weapon available, most of which is probably illegal under the Geneva Convention and various other conventions against war crimes. They don't give a fuck because they've got the backing of Uncle Sam, the United States, and of John Bull, the United Kingdom. So they don't give a shit. The EU's also got its tongue up the arse. Germany, embarrassingly, is harassing anybody waving Palestinian flags and says that the German left is what makes me cringe the most. I never thought there'd be a more cringeworthy left than that of the UK. But the German left is calling itself anti-fascist and supporting Israel. How can you be anti-fascist and support Israel? Is it because Israel is supposedly a Jewish state that you have to basically lick its arse and call yourself an anti-fascist? Jews are not immune to fascism as well. You get black fascists, you get Islamic fascists too. It's not just a white European thing. News for you, sweetheart. Now, this Ashkenazi white supremacist statelet, because it was largely created out of the collective guilt of European imperialists and now North American imperialists at the genocide of Jewish people at the hands of the Nazis between 1933 and 1945. It was all, the thing is, what they do is they get some like right-leaning Zionism, which is a right-wing white supremacist, mostly atheist Jewish nationalism, which does not adhere to the Jewish faith particularly well. A lot of them are, as I say, atheists, and some of them actually collaborated with the Nazis. This is not very well talked about, but it is well known and it is verifiable. I mean, I would suggest Googling it because, yeah. I don't want to sidetrack myself too much here. Now that was part of what was set up. Old Nazis were also given jobs in NATO and NASA and all that sort of thing. But that's another that's a subject for another video maybe. As I say, 2023. That fight back happened. People were killed. But what did shock a lot of people was just how much. That's the right word. Politeness was used by Hamas fighters. They came into a woman's home and said, "We will not hurt you. We are Muslims." And they didn't. They didn't hurt anybody. In fact, one of them said, "Do you mind if I take an apple?" Or was it a banana or something? Go figure. The Israeli Defense Forces, by comparison, dropped, was it napalm, phosphorus? They've been blanket bombing the homes of both Jewish settlers and Palestinians. In fact, hostages or prisoners, depending on what you want to call them, released, were saying to the Hamas fighters, "Thank you." They were saying in Arabic as well as in Hebrew, "Thank you for keeping us well while our own army was trying to kill us." Now, this IDF has also been crowing about via social media platforms like TikTok about how they've been burning down homes, blowing them up with explosives, tearing apart people's homes, smashing them up with sledgehammers, and then desecrating people's underwear by sticking them on their heads and wearing them and mocking them, particularly women. Misogyny is alive and well. They've been playing stupid games with dead Palestinians' toys in the homes of those people. And they call themselves the most moral army in the world, and the Israelis call themselves the most immoral state in the world. And if you criticize them, anti-Semitism, Right, I'm an Irish lapsed Catholic. You criticize me in any way, shape, or form, I just call you a loyalist. If I criticize Robert Mugabe, Idi Amin, Sani Abacha, Daniel Arap Moi, any of those African dictators who were murdering bastards, most of whom were puppets of the United States and Britain and France and the EU, by the way, trained by them, if not actual puppets of them, does that make me a white supremacist? If I criticize Ghazi Kodzo, that fucking geek, cultist little bastard, his weird black separatist cult, am I a white supremacist? Am I a Klansman? Of course I'm not. That is the most disingenuous, bullshit, and fucking, frankly, disgusting accusation. If you want to accuse people of being an anti-Semite, call out Elon Musk, call out Steve Bannon, call out the AFD. Elon Musk has been snuggling up to the AFD, which is pretty much an overtly neo-Nazi party. The far right is also the far right in Western Europe is too busy supporting an inter-imperial war in Ukraine. They're supporting either the Russian fascists, which invaded Ukraine, or they're supporting the Ukrainian Nazis, which largely provoked Russia into that war. That's another story. Volodymyr Zelensky, the alleged coke-addled fucking NATO puppet, his family, I believe, live in Tel Aviv or somewhere in there, isn't real. The Ukrainian Nazi-riddled militias have also been receiving training, as I understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've got a comment section for that. As I understand it, the Israeli Defense Forces have even trained some of the Ukrainian military, many of whom are overt neo-Nazis. They always take their Nazi patches off their uniforms when the Western media come to fawn over them. All right, now there's been Zionist protests calling for a death to all Arabs, calling for the overt murder of Palestinian children. Barely a word mentioned in the bourgeois media. Even the liberals try and sort of flip-flop on this one. The right-wing media says nothing. However, pro-Palestine marches are called Marches of Hate by Suella fucking Braverman. Where are you now, you cunt? Got so sorry for him. They're called anti-Semitic, Marches of Hate, chants of anti-Semitic rage and hatred. They're often sort of insinuously said they're Muslim or Islamic marches, even though a good half of the protesters supporting Palestine are not Muslims. Quite a few of them are, but so what? Some of them are also Jewish. Does that make them anti-Semites, or are they self-loathing Jews? That's the accusation they get thrown at them. What else do we have? We have Palestine Action. Spray and paint on RAF jets, which are being used by the Israeli genocide machine. They're labeled a terrorist group, whereas people who try to burn down refugees and burn them alive in shitty hotels that they were staying in, they don't stay in the 5-star Hilton ones. They stay in shitty, run-down places. I know people who used to be refugees, and they can confirm that in no uncertain terms. They try to burn these people alive, usually being egged on by people like Lucy Connolly, who got sent down for inciting this. Oh, they're victims of two-tier policing because they're taken into account for their attempted murder of immigrants. The right-wing press stirring up this hate, fanning the flames, fanning the fuel. They scapegoat some Tory councillor's wife, Lucy Connolly, but they don't point the finger at the fucking bourgeois moguls who are the ones starting this shit. Fascism is nothing without corporate and capitalist sponsorship and endorsement. Always remember that. The Nazis were the same. The fascists in Italy were the same. Fucking all these you could call them Islamic fascist groups like the Taliban, the Zionists are the same. All of them. They're all nothing without the sponsorship of the imperial puppet masters. Always there, pulling the strings. Now, that's how you know Palestinians are not fascists. They don't have any connection to these bastards. Or very little at best. Now, let's see. The media makes a big thing about this, but they also, when celebrities talk about it, they get labeled anti-Semitic. So half of them shut up. The rest of them come out and say, "Oh, Israel has a right to defend itself." Yeah, you Eli Roth and your shitty, awful, racist horror movies. Deborah fucking Messing going over there, fawning over this. Fuck you too, and the worst of the worst. That fucking loudmouth comedian saying, "If you believe in apartheid, fuck you." Yeah, Rappaport. Cunt. Fucking piece of shit. That's what you are. You deserve everything you fucking get. I know, but just for a disclaimer there, in case I get shut down, I am not encouraging violence against Michael Rappaport. The cunt's not worth it. Fucking piece of shit. Don't even get me started on that piece of shit. The antics of that prick. These bastards are supporting genocide, and if we call that out, you say that we just hate Jews. If a Jewish Holocaust survivor comes out and calls you out, you accuse them of being a self-loathing Jew. You are beneath contempt. Beneath it. We get Irish celebrities, West Brit Irish celebrities like Bono, who fawns over the thing on October the 7th, 2023. But as a result of that event, that October 7th thing, The genocide that was intensified by the Zionist fascist regime, Bono remained silent on it. He said, fuck all about that. Now, where are you now? Apart from making some half-arsed fucking speech saying basically both sides are bad, you were fucking silent. So, fuck off and die, Bono. Go, sue us, art fan. I need to. I fucking need to. Yeah. Which, moving swiftly on, brings me to Kneecap. Now, Kneecap, hip-hop style group. They rap in Irish. The language has almost been driven to extinction, but Kneecap have resurrected this, popularized it again. So it's not just a kind of like exclusive little thing for middle-class hipsters or academics who become very gatekeepy about their precious Irish language, wearing little rings, these Urs rings, that Brendan being referred to them as Urs holes, Urs being another name for the Irish language. The Kneecap have popularized it. They've reintroduced words that weren't allowed because the Catholic Church didn't allow it. No swear words and so on and so forth. Achan, look that one up. It's one of those things. Bud, a bit like that. Kneecap have popularized it. They've made it into the Irish language has actually had a resurrection and a rebirth, a renaissance, if you will, that has been long overdue, and God bless them, they will always be loved for that. They've stuck it to the British establishment. Now, people claim that, people claim to love Ireland and love Irish people. They love Bono, they love the Cranberries, who are fucking cringe. They don't really love Irish people. When you ask, the litmus test is, do they like Irish travellers? And do they like people from Liverpool? Do they like the Scouser? They will generally say, I fucking hate Scousers, because the Scousers, you see, because they weren't born in Ireland, they're not really Irish then, so it's okay, you see. But what the actual truth is, Liverpool people, the word scouse comes from the Irish stew that they were the Irish immigrants from the famine in 1845 to 52. Because of that, was it 46? Yeah, anyway, 1840s, 1850s, the famine that brought droves of Irish people over to the slave port of Liverpool, they brought the stew with them, and they were referred to as the term lescouse, which is a pejorative term used against these people. They refer to them as Scousers. However, the Irish and the mixture of Irish, Scottish, and Welsh, mainly Irish and Welsh, which is why the Liverpool accent is so distinctive, have become the butt of everyone's jokes. They've become vilified and hated in the tabloid press. See the Hillsborough disaster in 1989. That bastards have barely even apologized for that, and even then it was half-arsed. The hatred of Scousers and the hatred of travellers, the racist slurs, which I am not going to repeat here, but are still frequently used against them, because apparently they're not a race. It's okay. It's not racist. They claim to love the Irish, but they only love, West British people mostly with English names. They've turned a blind eye to the far right in Ireland, who are, again, mostly descended from colonial settlers and snuggling up to loyalism. They don't say anything about that. They hate Irish people who speak Irish. They hate Irish people who talk about the Irish, the famine and the colonialism, the colonization of Ireland. And they don't like Irish people who put balaclavas on and sing songs in Irish, and they don't like it when a bunch of bog-trotting paddies start talking about Palestine and British imperialism and so on and so forth. That rattles their cages. You know, if you're an Irish musician or an Irish artist of any kind, if you've pissed off the imperial puppet masters, you know you're doing something right. God bless you. But anyway, now they Kneecap with their antics. I say antics humorously, at the Coachella Festival, with a big backdrop of their set saying, pointing out the fact that Palestinians are being slaughtered in their tens of thousands by the Israeli war machine, and fuck Israel, free Palestine. Boys, you did nothing wrong. Sharon Osbourne, that fucking vile hag, decided to call them a bunch of anti-Semites, and she said, if this isn't enough to damn Bono, I don't know what is. She said they should be more like Bono and less like Kneecap. Sharon Osbourne says she should be more like Bono. That's enough to damn, Sharon Osbourne, but that's enough to damn Bono. You know what I mean? So anyway, with that, Mo Farah, Liam O'Hanny, or Liam Hanna as the Brits call him, because they can't pronounce Irish names and they have no interest in the Irish language. They say they love the Irish. They don't really. They like the West Brits. He was threatened. He was charged with terrorism or promoting terrorism, being out on bail. But because of this, the British brainwashing cartel, the BBC, refused to live stream them when they played at the Glastonbury Festival. Because they're cowards, and they're also a mouthpiece of British imperialism. They did, however, make the mistake, and they shot themselves in the foot with this. They made the mistake of allowing Bob Vylan to play. Well, they played their set, and the BBC live streamed it, as everybody knows, and we all know that what happened after that. They chanted "Free Palestine" and "Death to the IDF." The result of this was a massive media backlash. We had cunts in the Daily Mail saying this is how the Third Reich began. It's funny, they should know about the Third Reich. They supported it back in the day. They don't tell you about that, do they? But they fucking did. Watch the headlines of the 1930s and 40s. Well, not the 40s, because they were at war with them then. They couldn't get away with it. But they did endorse both Adolf Hitler and Oswald Mosley, the British fascist black shirt leader. They're but the irony. There we have Andrew Neil, which I saw talking about that today when Turn Left did a video about him. It's a good video. I recommend you watch it. I'll link it below. He was there calling Bob Vylan a bunch of talentless morons, which is a seriously insulting thing. More than a few. I think there's possibly a few racist innuendos made in that one. He mocked the lead singer, Bob Vylan's lead singer's double barrel name, trying to imply that Bob Vylan and all of the left are a bunch of middle-class, namby-pamby, limp-wristed, tree-hugging hippies or something. No, I don't know Bob Vylan, the two guys from Bob Vylan's background. I know they're both black lads. I think they're from London. They speak with very definitely London accents. They talk about racism and urban decay and the shit that's going on in the world and the right-wing, vile reactionary politics, because they see it and they live it. That is what punk rock is. Them and Kneecap know what it's like to be on the receiving end of things. They both come from like ethnic groups that are being systemically either enslaved if they're black or colonized if you're Irish. There was out within living memory, some people still remember in the UK, signs up with room to rent, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, job vacancy, blacks and Irish need not apply. This was quite normalized up until the 60s or 70s. It was quite, they've brushed that under the carpet, but we haven't fucking forgotten, and we don't punch down at Palestinians, and we don't punch down at Muslims either. So fuck you, and fuck you, Andrew Neil, and fuck the Daily Mail. As far as I'm concerned, death to the Daily Mail. Does that mean I'm going to go around on a pogrom killing everybody that reads it or writes for it? No, of course I'm not. I'm not that. That's disingenuous. Now, I want to talk about this now. This death to the IDF being an anti-Semitic chant and all this now. Why would they say that? I mean, apart from the fact that it's a disingenuous way of trying to slam people and cancel people. Yes, cancel culture, which the right wing whinge about, are the most guilty of doing it. Why would they do that though? Now, look at history. When they used to say death to the Nazis, smash the Nazis, destroy Nazi Germany. They were endorsing, this is the same people that were endorsing like spitting on dachshunds and German shepherd dogs. I mean, the First World War, it was even more extreme, but even in the Second World War, they were stirring up this hate against civilians from Germany. Anybody with a German name was spat at and regarded as a dirty Jerry. They even tried to claim that it was us against the Jerrys, the Germans. They tried to make out that the Russians were on the same side as the Nazis in the early part of the war. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was not a fucking alliance. It was a non-aggression pact. I'm not going to go on about that now. This kind of chauvinistic shit from Britain, the USA as well, that said, smash the Nazis, bash the Jerry. What they really meant was, let's bomb their cities, let's kill loads of civilians. They firebombed Dresden, which was admittedly was a hotbed of, I think, Nazi activity there. But not everyone living in Dresden was a Nazi. Some people were in the underground. They were burned alive as well. So of course, when Bob Vylan say death to the IDF, they're conflating that with saying kill all the Jews, because that's how these fuckers think. The same thing with smash the Empire of Japan, bash down the imperial aggression. Let's drop a H-bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So of course they're going to say, when we say death to the IDF, that they're trying to say that it's kill all the Jews. I mean, it's a disingenuous twisting anyway. That's what they do. But that just made me think. This is how these bastards think. They said smash the IRA when they really meant smash Irish people. And the IRA was at one point the only thing that defended Irish sovereignty and Irish culture against absolute annihilation by Britain anyway. But that's another story. I think On the plus side, the positives of this is that punk rock, which I thought was pretty much dead in the water. Excuse me. I need a glass of water. I forgot to get one. But punk rock has been pretty much, what shall I say, defanged, declawed, castrated, if you will, for the last, 20 years? Artists like Avril Lavigne, I mean, I don't know, maybe she's good. I could never stand her. She's very bland, and I thought she's about this. She'd wear like very expensive designer punk rock skater gear, but wouldn't swear on her records, wouldn't talk about bloody political stuff or social stuff, which is what punk rock's all about. If you want to see punk rock from the old days, listen to GBH, listen to Discharge, listen to The Exploited, where they had a bit of a dodgy element to them and had a bit of a dodgy following, but they still talked about, urban deprivation and violence and so on and so forth, and police brutality. So did Discharge, so did GBH, so did UK Subs. Back in the 70s, The Clash did the same thing. Some of them dealt with teenage angst, like, the Buzzcocks, Ever Fall in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have, stuff like that. But it was all grassroots from a more working class, angry youth, disaffected youth of the 1970s and 80s. That's where the background of it came from. Hip hop has a similar thing, with mostly coming from angry black kids in cities like Los Angeles and New York, fighting back against the pigs who were killing them. That's why they sing songs like "Fuck the Police" by NWA, "Fight the Power" by Public Enemy. You have people like supposed Latino artists like Immortal Technique talking about this. Hip hop, like punk rock, was largely sanitized and turned into bling bling bitches into hoes and the gold chains and all this crap. Again, over polished rubbish. When you listen to proper grassroots hip hop, it's actually really good. It's like rock music was sanitized in the 80s to make soft metal like Bon Jovi in Europe. We had thrash metal as a kind of kick back against that by mixing it with hardcore punk. Again, talking about real things, not talking about you give fucking love a bad name and fucking living on a prayer. To be fair, did have some social elements to it, but very little. Now, punk rock in the 2000s, with the event of like emo, they made it. I mean, some emo wasn't too bad, but again, it got very quickly co-opted by the music industry. Effectively becomes like MTV friendly, sponsored by Coke or Pepsi or whatever fucking corporate sponsors. The clothes they wear are all designer, slightly punky, with Avril Lavigne singing about skater boys, spelled in the edgy way, SK8RBOI. Oh, I'm so edgy, text speak. And then we had like, what was it now? God, I can't remember them. Was it Blink 182, who I think started out as a punky type band, but basically sold out and became a caricature of themselves? Playing arenas, ticket prices being through the roof, very punk rock. All wearing very fancy designer clothes, singing about partying in Beverly Hills and partying and pool parties and all this shit, and singing with these nasal accents. Oh my God, let's have a pool party. Fuck off. It's not punk rock. And I thought, this is what you'd see punk rock shows on the radio. You'd hear them on the radio. And all it was wall-to-wall Californian middle-class hipsters talking about party. My dad's on fucking vacation. Until, of course, I found Bandcamp, which has given us some good genuine punk rock and death metal and black metal and anti-racist black metal as well. If you haven't listened to Period Eater, Yovel, Underdark, Dawn Raid, and Tarpan, fucking go and listen to them. Check them out on Bandcamp. I really recommend them. You thank me later. You're welcome. But anyway, because until I found all that out, there was very little in terms of punk rock. We have, however, now come out with hip hop and punk fused over into people like Kneecap, dealing with stuff about Irish history, doing the unacceptable face of Irishness that the BBC tries to quash when they try and give us people like Bono and Riverdance, which is nice Ireland. Fuck off. So we have Kneecap, the ugly underbelly, they talk about urban poverty in West Belfast. One of them's from DJ Provy, I believe, is from Derry, talking about life in the 6 counties after the so-called troubles are supposedly over, which of course they're not. It's still occupied by Britain. Bob Vylan, two black guys, I think, from London, talking about the same thing. Both of them called out the IDF. Both of them are now being investigated or threatened with being investigated in the case of Bob Vylan. The media makes a massive furore about this. They completely ignore actual racist violence or play it down. But you know what it does? The one good thing about all this obscenity is at least punk is not dead. I thought it was dead, but it makes me just feel like chanting the old saying, punk's not dead. Ni punk je marav, a squelga. Punk nie mrtav, na srbskom I hrvatskom. I'll say that, punk forever, fuck off, and fuck the capitalist system, and fuck all those corporate bastards. Don't give me pop punk shite that's endorsing the war with Ukraine and saying give more drones to a fascist puppet regime in Kiev. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of the Putin-led war against the Ukrainian civilians either, but I'm not going to simp for either side in that inter-imperialist proxy war, and fuck off to both sides. But they won't say a word about the violence that was committed that's been committed in the genocide of Palestine, the attempted the violence against Lebanese people, those pager bombs. You remember that? Michael Rappaport crowing about that one. They've said fuck all about this, and they haven't mentioned God knows all the plunder of the global south from everywhere from across the Abya Yala, better known as South America. Half of Africa, Congo's been going through slaughter and massacres as well. That's being barely talked about. They don't talk about the Saudi, another puppet regime, Saudi Arabia's invasion and slaughter of civilians in Yemen. None of that gets talked about because, well, it's punks been co-opted. Not anymore. There are still ones out there playing at the Glastonbury Festival and saying death to the IDF and getting shit off the media for it. You know what? Makes me proud. I'll give it that much. The media just shows itself up for what it is. It's just another right-wing fucking load of bullshit. And it pretends to be all inclusive and all that, but it isn't. You know, they pretend the right-wing whinge about the woke, but it goes out the window when capitalism goes into crisis. So with that, I'm going to end this up here. I've ranted on here for over half an hour, and I didn't mean to go on this long, but I will say, Kneecap Abu, Bob Vylan Abu, Slán go fóil agus Canadian bohre a charja, Saoirse go Joe agus Saoirse don Palestine. Chucky, you're a law.